Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 3-0.
Okay, see everybody afterwards.
Hasta luego, jóvenes. Nice compliment, Robert.
I'm in trouble, my friend.
No, dude, yeah, I'm done. I'm exhausted.
I know. It's well, you're like you said, right now we're gonna sit there. It's gonna start hitting us.
Okay, everybody, good afternoon. Welcome back to Santa Rita Union School District meeting. We're going to call back from closed session. Nothing was reported on, so there's nothing to report out. We're going to move on to item 5.1, approval of consent agenda. If I could please get a motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
And before we move forward, one of the items that we approved.
Thank you. One of the items in the consent agenda is the appointment as Brenda for our new assistant principal at McKinnon Elementary School. So I am so excited, and I told them I had so many different embarrassing stories to choose from that I had to think carefully about which one I wanted the most. But this is now I'm going to get emotional. We were phone banking for the to pass the bond off-site, doing our good public works for the school district. And I saw Brenda hang up the phone after talking to someone for a long time, and she was shaking a little bit. And I went over to see if she was okay. And she turned around to me with tears in her eyes, and she said, "That was a person who's a voter. He's 25, and he just told me that I was the best teacher that he ever had." And I said, "Well, of course you were." And I wasn't surprised at all. And he, many years removed from being a middle school student, but she shone like a star in his memory. So congratulations. We're really excited.
Just to give everyone a little bit of background, Miss Burrett was a student at Santa Rita Elementary School and then here at Gavilan View Middle School as well. And I believe that Miss Burrett is going into her 25th year in education here in the Santa Rita Union School District. So I think it's fair to say she doesn't just know our district, she is our district. So pleased. And Miss Burrett taught core, she taught math, and for the last 3 years, she's been an academic coach at John Gutierrez Middle School. And Miss Burrett right now moving into administration is taking a leap that when I first took that leap from being an instructional facilitator and teacher and moving into administration, I asked one of my principals, I said, "I'm going to need you to talk me into or out of this decision."
Mm-hmm.
And she said the only reason that a really great teacher should ever leave the classroom is because they have potential to make an impact on a greater number of students. She said, and you have to do that the farther up you go, because you don't get that immediate joy that you have in a classroom full of students. So here you are about to make an impact on a whole school's worth of elementary students. I'm imagining also that you're going to have some former students in your office now as parents talking to you about the school and what's going on and helping them navigate this future with their little ones at McKinnon Elementary School. I'm proud to announce that you are moving into leadership here in this district that clearly you love.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I came in as a board member, you were a teacher when I first came in. So I appreciate the time you spend in the district, but also willingness to kind of step up into the different roles wherever our district needed. So thank you.
Miss Barrett, how special is this? You are loved by so many. And what Sarah just said, I could attest to that because you were my teacher here at Gavilan View. And did you make an impact? And I know personally you made an impact on me. And you made an impact on a lot of us that year. We lost 2 students that year, and I was with them since we started here. And both of them, Darren and Danny, they had made a change already. I am so happy to see you move into this position. I know you're going to do great. And yes, you are. You do make an impact on a lot of us. Me sitting here today has a lot to do with you teaching us and showing us that you could pursue anything. So thank you for your services. And I know you're going to do great.
Brenda, I'm so glad. I've heard a lot of things good things about you. Your leadership skills, your with children, you're compassionate, and I just hope that you have I mean, you've been in the district for so long that you're calling this this is your family and this is your home. So I wish you all the best.
Did you want to say a few words? Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say how honored I am to be able to continue my career here in the Santa Rita Union School District. There's no other place I'd rather be. And I really do look forward to working with students, staff, parents of McKinnon Elementary. I've got to see what it looks like on the adolescent side, the older adolescent. And now I get to be part of nourishing the younger students. So I'm really excited to use my skills in a bigger capacity. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Quick picture.
Oh, picture.
No, I know, but how long have you been? In October, but 5 years of prayer for that. All right, sorry, we're close because with your prayers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Go and celebrate.
Okay, we're going to move on to reports and correspondence. Is there any comments from SRTA?
There are not.
Okay. CSEA?
No.
Okay, move on to Superintendent's Cabinet.
Dr. Summer Prather Smith?
Just really briefly, we did, as I shared last time, finished up our summer academy for this year with great success. Thank you to that team. We had lots of tears on the last day of kids asking why we weren't having it in July, and we said because we're tired. But we will be continuing our ELOP in July. Our students have the option of attending Boys and Girls Club camp covered by the district as well, so that we make sure that students have continuity of service throughout July. And then this coming Sunday, we'll be taking 200 students and families to see Honk at Hartnell Theater to make sure that we're kind of just keeping that connection throughout the month of July. And then I'm excited that I've been able to meet with all of our ELOP partners, Boys and Girls Club, Centro Binacional, everybody, and we're all set for day one of the start of the school year. So thank you, thank you.
I'm glad you're taking him to see Honk because I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
And it's a fabulous. Well, Sarah can attest to that.
It's fabulous. And I'm going again on Sunday. So this is going to be number 2 for me.
And then Miss Becky Moore?
Thank you. As you know, July is the start of the new school year. So we have just a couple of weeks before all our administrators return. We're getting everything ready for professional development sessions, for admin, for teachers, for staff, and also getting all of those curriculum orders they're rolling in. So we're getting those sorted and delivered to the right spots. So it's a busy time, but exciting as the new year is kicking off.
Any questions or comments? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the board and the superintendent. Miss Cindy Lopez.
I don't have anything to report tonight.
Okay, Miss Alviano.
I don't either this time.
I just want to express my gratitude for giving the kids the opportunity to see live theater. They're absolutely going to love it, and I'm going to come too and love it for a second time.
I'll be there.
Okay, I don't have anything to report myself. Dr. Alderman?
Rosa, Victor, and I put together just a couple of slides to give an update on our solar systems and our cell towers. We had shared in April following a facilities committee meeting that the testing and the training that had been done at Santa Rita Elementary proved that the new solution was working. They were able to test during the school day and after hours. And we used that opportunity to train all of our staff district-wide so that when their systems were up and running. So as you may know, this project has been going on for the better part of the last 10 years. And our solar systems and the backup battery never, they didn't work as had originally been planned. Around, I believe, 2022, Generate Capital took over as the owner of the project, and they spent as much time as they could trying to make the systems work so that our solar energy is also offsetting our PG&E, feeding into the grid, but also that our backup batteries work so that should electricity and services go down, that we are able to keep our site running by having the battery system working. And that didn't, they tried as many solutions as they could come up with to make the inverters work. And their final remedy was to say we need to just demolish the inverters and we need to put in new equipment. And so we selected Santa Rita Elementary School. They did that, and that was completed in November. Then we were looking for starting the next projects in a timeline that we were able to just do one site after the next. And so as you can see, this is where we're at. So we're looking at started in June and through July, and you'll see some overlap because as sites are getting into the testing phase, they can go ahead and begin the work in the next one because it's going back and just testing the system. And so demoing those inverters and prepping the solars for the new system so that they can just go from site to site. Victor added how many inverters each of the sites have, and it's just based on the positioning and the size of their arrays. And then the timeline, so that what we're looking at is the completion with testing and everything to make sure that they're all as operable as Santa Rita Elementary's is looking at the end of December. So you'll see they have a little time in there between the end of New Republic and the guarantee completion. That just gives that little bit of wiggle room in there and to allow them to test. And just wanted to let everybody know, I know we had talked about it before, but we have this during the time, especially once Generate Capital came on board. We do receive true up for that loss of battery that we had been expecting with these systems, the operation of those, and the production of energy. And so that averages out to be approximately 35,000 each year. And then you can already see that now Santa Rita's is operable and going into the grid. That will begin to decrease headed up to the end of December as systems go online and are fully functioning. So we give a little bit of that energy back to the PG&E grid, and so that will offset that bill. And so that's what that true up is helping to do, because we had been guaranteed a product and it wasn't working. And so when the company shifted to fall under Generate Capital, they've been working diligently to try to make it work, to the extent that they said we're going to have to take these out and put in new. So that's it for that. And then in June, I had shared to the next slide for me. I had shared a little update at facilities in April, and then a further update in June. So the district houses 2 cell phone towers that are currently owned by T-Mobile. So one here at Gavilan View, it's actually sort of between the old Riff warehouse and the multi-purpose room on the parking lot facing side, and with the actual tower on the NPR. and one that is in the MOTF yard, but adjacent to John Gutierrez. And so those were non-compliant with DSA regulations, and we worked with T-Mobile to come up with a written agreement that T-Mobile will complete all of the DSA requirements. DSA, the Division of State Architects, had laid out exactly what would need to be done by T-Mobile, and a lot of it is following up on paperwork and that piece, and some physical adjustment of the site to bring it into compliance with current regulations, and that T-Mobile would bear all of the cost and they would agree to remove it if they do not get DSA approval. And so T-Mobile in June, I was able to share that T-Mobile has contracted with architecture firm Sigamer Affinity on the project. And we work often with Sigamer Affinity as our architects, and that firm is fully aware of the scope and the prescribed remedy needed. And the site reviews have been carried out, and T-Mobile has confirmed that they are now in the phase of reviewing the proposal by the architect to begin the site work. And so also, I think we've shared before, Rosa has, but we receive approximately $25,000 per tower from T-Mobile, and that just goes back into our telecommunications, just like the true up for the solar systems, that goes back into our funds needed for our PG&E bills across the district. So that's where we're at there. And when work does begin on the sites, I'll bring you that update as well.
Right. The only question I had on the solar system with Santa Rita, it doesn't have to be right away, but are just being able to compare how much savings we're seeing pre-solar and post-solar?
We're at the point that we should be able to start to see that now. They just sent us the information about the current true up running from July through December. So we should be able to identify that offset in the next month or two.
Okay, yeah, and probably it'll probably take a while before we actually see the full
Yeah.
cycle
For
annually of the.
For sure.
so
But
they
we
can-
should have an idea of what that got us at the one site just to stay ahead of that.
And I just thank you for all this information. And I just want to let the public know that one of the reasons that we wanted the batteries in the first place was, even though we don't ever want to have a natural disaster, that it was a way to supply electricity to the area if all of our homes were down, that this could be a place that someone could go and we would have light and power, the ability for refrigeration and other things. So obviously we hope that that's not necessary, but it was one of the ideas about saying, hey, how can we better serve the community? And these solar panels were not put up with district money. They were put up with the from the outside company paying for them, so just so the public's aware.
And so the batteries would be able to do that, kind of what Sarah just
Yeah,
said?
what we're able to do is it feeds the battery so that it stores enough energy. And then if all the power goes out and we find out it's going to be a long term, we can go and turn the systems over to draw on the battery. And so it's not enough to run everything. Like we won't be running the air conditioning and the heating and those things, but we can keep the lights on in the multi-purpose room. We can keep our refrigeration on. We can keep access to those essential services. So like Sarah said, should a natural disaster occur and we need to be a community hub, our multi-purpose rooms would be that center that we would open for families to come in, you know, to get that relief that they need if we need to shift into that space. And also for our students to be able to go and have what they need while we're working on getting them home in the event that something lesser than a disaster happens, but we lose power and we need to facilitate getting our students and staff home. Just gives us that little backup. And then Chuck will tell you it's great for making sure that the refrigeration is staying running so that we're not losing our food products.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, anybody else from the board? No? Okay, thank you for the update. Moving on to public comment. Is there public comment regarding non-agenda or agenda items?
We do not.
Okay, 9.1 is approval of resolution 25.06.11, providing for the issuance of sale of 2025 bond anticipation notes to the school facilities improvement district number 2022-1.
Thank you. We brought this resolution forward as a first reading at our prior meeting in November 2022. District voters approved our Measure R, authorizing the sale of $24.9 million in general organization and obligation bonds. And in 2023, we sold Series A bonds for approximately $9 million. And we have a remaining balance of about $15.9 million in authorized Measure R bonds. And we sold we passed our resolution to pursue the sale of our 2025 Series B bonds at our prior meeting, issuing approximately $7 million. $7 million. And in working with our financial consultants and the current market, we saw the need to potentially issue the other approximate $7 million remaining in bond anticipatory notes. Going ahead and doing that now ahead of waiting till 2030 for our Series C sale allows us to lock in our pricing, keep projects going right now at today's construction rate, which, as you know, have swelled repeatedly each year. And doing this allows us to have access to those funds earlier and complete those projects as soon as possible and lock in those rates. And it will be repaid under our obligation for our bonds. And it allows us to access those funds in advance.
So I know there was a timeline for as far as when projects will be completed. So does that move certain projects around now that there's going to be more upfront?
It doesn't really move projects around so much. It allows us to stay on that timeline and get projects going as soon as possible instead of a potential delay in waiting. So because you don't want to sell your next series of bonds until you are drawing down on the current one that you are accessing. For example, our Series A is twilighting this summer as projects, and we're making our payments to our contractors and keeping the continuity of the project, bringing forward the Series B so that funding is available. You'll see another resolution to allow the possibility of interfund borrowing if there's a time gap in between when the bond sale is complete for Series B coming to the district. And it's really, that part is making sure the continuity of funding. Going after the bands early allows us to make sure that we're able to keep projects going sooner because as much as project costs have escalated, anticipating that we would be priced out of the market well before we would reach 2030 and then not be able to complete the scale of projects that we were hoping to complete as just our bare needed projects allows us to get ahead of that.
So some projects would be done sooner potentially then.
Thank you. On our facilities timing, what you saw us doing was potentially pushing projects farther out. And a lot of those had to do with our state funded projects. And because that's an unknown, those will remain farther out. And what we're looking at is making sure that our bond funded projects are still staying in that next few year timeline and being able to get those done as much as possible with the uncertainty of state funded projects being farther out and being able to keep that last facilities plan that we had in January as tight to that as possible for those bond funded projects remaining where they are in our current plan and keeping those going. We are in line for state funding for like matching funds and those things, but with the current economic uncertainty, we don't want to rely on that coming to us when we need it. And so if we do our bands early, that allows us that access of funds, and then that additional state funding can be gathered in that later timeline that we're currently anticipating just with the economic situation at the state.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, 9.2 is approval of resolution number 25.07.12 for interfund borrowing and resolution number 25.07.13 for reimbursement of funds.
Thank you. The district has done something similar when we needed to offset our funding for the purchase of the land, and then we were able to move it back. This is our CBO being very diligent and proactive and wanting to ensure that as we get into the fall, because it takes time to get our bond sales done and those things, and if you think of like a check coming to us, and if there's any kind of a gap, if we're able to go ahead and just borrow this money from one fund into the other, it's there. If we don't need it, that's great. And if we do need it, when we do get our bond sales, that is what we will use to move the funds back into their original source. Approximately $1.8 million would move from Fund 40, which is our capital funds facilities, over to Fund 21, and that is our bond fund. So we would just be loaning ourselves that $1.8 million to use in the event we end up with a funding gap.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve unless there's questions or comments?
No, motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, our next regular board meeting will be July 23rd, 2025. And a couple of future, I guess, board items is if it's possible to do tours of the school. Possibly, I mean, because we're kind of tight before school starts, if not along the way, just to kind of get an update on facilities. And then if you can kind of calendar in, just so some board members have more time, learning walks. I guess at least if possible.
More of a heads up for learning walks you're already doing.
Yeah,
just so that we could potentially
attend.
attend. We just need more lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then doesn't have to be right away, but sometime in the first couple board meetings for next school year, is this kind of update on the Centro Binacional program, just to see how that's going.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else from the board? No? Okay.
Mr. Sandoval, did you want us to do that? We're beginning the McKinnon program. Did you want us to do it kind of once that gets started?
Yes.
A couple
Yeah.
weeks into the year then? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
just so I can schedule with them. So I'll schedule maybe September timeframe. Is that?
Yeah, so it gives them enough time to know. Yeah.
Yeah, because that program will just be starting. Okay.
Can I get a motion to adjourn at 6:30?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, have a nice evening, everyone.
Did we make